Uh, Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak on this very important area, and it's a greatly appreciated initiative by Vedanta. I'm particularly thankful to Mr. Rahul Sharma ji, the CEO of Vedanta, and very nice overview of Vedanta initiatives and activities and concerns that he has shared with us. Thank you very much, sir. I'm also grateful to Amit Chatterjee for presenting a very detailed information about bauxite and fly ash related the interests that Vedanta has. And particularly, I am grateful to Ulas Parlekarji for creating a background for my discussion. He has very nicely explained the issues related to bauxite residue and how it needs to be upscaled by the participation of industry, particularly cement industry. I will, on the similar lines, I will try to explain my concern from the fly ash perspective. This presentation is co-authored by my colleague Abhijit, who has done a fairly good amount of research work on this issue. Well, the concern from our perspective is starting from the premise that do we really have a choice, and or can we ignore that these resources are not useful? Well, if we cannot undermine significance of power sector, if we cannot undermine significance of aluminum sector, then bauxite residue and fly ash is something that we have to deal with it. So instead of looking at it as a waste product, then we have to look at it as a resource harnessing, and we have to change our paradigm, perspective, wherein instead of calling it fly ash as a waste product, we considered that the right nomenclature of fly ash should be coal combustion residual, just as red mud is bauxite residue, and it gives an understanding of some technical qualified resource rather than simply waste which needs to be utilized, and we need to look at its potential of harnessing rather than allowing it to be considered as a waste. I will present the timeline of efforts in utilization thus far, and also discuss issues related to the current status of utilization of coal combustion residue, and also we will look at the potential application and what are the challenges that we would expect to be facing. Well, this slide presents the journey of coal combustion residue, that's a fly ash, and to what extent we have been harnessing and what has been our policy initiative. The story starts from 1994, wherein government very actively started looking at problems related to fly ash, and sometime around in 1999, the notifications started talking about the targets. And if we look at where we are today in 2021, we see that the targets which were supposed to be fulfilled by the year 2007, wherein fly ash related bricks should have been 100% substituted by 2007, we find that even today we are far behind. Therefore, what we consider is that these policy initiatives have not been really that effective. Although in terms of policy initiative, government has indeed taken a very proactive role. And if at all there is any issue that has not led to this kind of the kind of utilization that one would have expected, we need to look at the reasons. But as far as the policy initiatives are concerned, enough has already been done. If we look at the outcome of these initiatives today in 2021, we find that the four areas are very, very significant, where we either have to expand our harnessing, or there are already potential opportunities which we need to expedite. As far as the cement is concerned, and if we compare ourselves with what is happening in China, our consumption in terms of fly ash utilization is fairly good. We are at about 25% odd. And as far as the brick and tiles, we are way, way behind from China. And similarly, in terms of concrete, we are way, way behind concrete. However, in terms of roads and flyovers, the story is very good. As far as the brick and tiles is concerned, again, we have made a beginning, but we still are not at the same level. And the question arises whether or not China story is really significant to us. Our concern is that these are already established areas of application. So if there is a gap of about 25 odd percent variation in consumption of these four areas, we can look at how potentials have happened there, and probably we can look at some opportunity. Now, these are two established harnessing potential areas, wherein India story is telling that there are some areas of concern, and there are some issues related to China. Now, if you look at my previous slide, how policy initiatives have happened, we find that maybe we need to slightly look at differently and look for a way of harnessing this potential. So we would like to draw cement and industrialized construction product industry so that we don't let this opportunity go, and we need to think differently. And when we talk about industrialized construction products, unlike a very conventional opportunity of fly ash bricks that we have been focusing in this country, we understand that it's a time when we start looking at industrialized construction product as a segment which will try to pick it up. And the other one is, of course, cement industry. So in these two areas, we need to focus for thinking differently. Looking at the potential applications in cement and concrete industry, it's one of the most significant opportunity of utilization. PPC cement is widely accepted. We have a cement industry which is expected to grow 600 million tons. That is annual requirement, 6 to 7% growth annually till 2030. And we expect that this area would consume fairly large amount of can consume fairly large amount of concrete. And when we compare the other opportunities, we find that the cement industry still has a huge potential of something like 60% more consumption of fly ash. That is what we need to harness, and we need to look at the involvement of the cement industry, how we can actually upscale beyond what is conventionally being done. As far as the success story in roads and flyovers is concerned, we have made great strides from 4.48% in 2018 to 15.04% in 2021, and the credit essentially goes to the greenfield highways. But the trouble here is that so far the greenfield highways were very favorite infrastructure development projects, but they also have their own saturation limit. So our concern is that, are we really hitting the saturation in this particular segment? If there is possibility that we are going to hit into saturation, our consumption of 15.04 may probably not be the only opportunity, where the 60% opportunity that we are looking may not really make sense. So therefore, we need to look at the expansion of roads and flyovers, which is not full to utilize to that extent. And therefore, in the expansion of flyovers and roads, the two things that we need to highlight is the transportation, supply chain, demand versus supply location, which actually looks at areas which are probably far away from where the demand is, from the locations where the supply is. In fact, this is an issue that happens everywhere else as well. And Mr. Ulas also mentioned some of these issues. Transportation. Thank you, sir, again. And the other thing that we need to do is how do we tap this industry, because most of the expansion happens in a very different context of project scenario. So again, we need to start thinking differently, be that involvement of the government or involvement of the other stakeholders in the process. Coming to the beaten track of fly ash brick utilization, so far largely we have focused on the bricks and blocks. And when we look at the current utilization and bricks and blocks, we are consuming something like 30.18 million tons. Number of fly ash waste bricks produced in 2021 is in the range of about 40 billion units. Annual demand is around 320 billion units. So out of 320 billion units, we are only at about 40.24. Now, therefore, there is a huge potential of over 87% market demand that we need to harness. Now, here we again have to remember that if 40% has been 13% has been a success, then probably we need to build on our experience and start looking at the reasons why we have not been able to do. But the problem is that we need to bridge that gap by some innovation. Now, the challenge here is essentially, in our understanding, is not on the technical properties of fly ash and the fly ash based bricks, but our issue is related to the marketing and whether or not the approach of bricks as a product is the right way, or we start looking at innovation in terms of a solution for the walls and partitions where bricks are being used. So our inference and understanding is, why should we follow the beaten track alone and start looking differently? We also have potential applications where we have to see bricks and blocks in the context of MOEF mandate, where up to 300 kilometers we are expected to go full blast and look at opportunities. And when we look at that, the fly ash quantity required would be in the range of about 49 to 186 million tons to be able to produce 200 to 50 billion units, and the quantity that we would need to be harnessed is something like 18 million ton. And we also have another unharnessed store of about 1,500 million tons. So there is a concern as far as brick and blocks is concerned, that we only have about 18 million tons available, and there's actually a shortfall if we have to produce 200 to 50 billion units. And which actually brings us to the question that possibly bricks and blocks have already reached a stage of utilization, saturation of utilization. In that case, we need to go into the pond stored fly ash, which is in the range of about 1,500 tons. And in order to utilize 1,500 tons, we need to look at the challenges with respect to their properties. How do we transport that? And so far, our focus has been on not on the pond stored fly ash. So what are our challenges there? Now, what we understand is this requires a different strategy, because now the resource is coming from a different location, and we need to think differently away from our beaten track. And what kind of difficulties that we would face. And as far as the other unharnessed potentials are concerned, where we also have to start looking at where actually we have made good development, but we have still not started working on these utilization opportunities. We have seen that aggregates have a great potential to utilize fly ash. We have a great potential to use in synthetic wood, paints, enamels, precast panels. And we've seen that in false ceiling panels, even in building construction, there is a great opportunity where the tiles, if they compare with current other competitors, fiber reinforced by organic or metal or synthetic reinforcement, added, these things can give you more or less the same property and be very, very useful. And what we understand is that they are not developed for commercialization, but they are actually the potential application. So we need to think about how we can bring applications here, and that's where we solicit the innovative thinking from the cement and other construction, industrialized construction product stakeholders. Now, when we say industrialized construction product, these are the unharnessed potentials, and there we are not looking at the typical brick kiln people who are actually migrating fly ash brick production. The other is we have a fairly good success in use of fly ash as precast elements in curbstones, lintels, sill, etc. Floor tile, wall tile, pavers, drainage and sanitary pipe, but that still hasn't picked up, although there is nothing that we understand that prohibits its use, but this needs scaling up. Yeah, that's a marketing issue. That's an issue of enterprise. But as far as the technical properties are concerned, I think even we upscale, these issues would also start getting. So we have a palette of industrialized product opportunities, and I think that is something we should not miss out. Coming to the issue of conventional clay brick replacement and comparing it with AAC blocks, clay bricks, fly ash bricks, others cement concrete blocks, we find that if we bring in all the costs and we look at the solution, not in terms of 873 rupees for the clay bricks or AC blocks, or 830 rupees for the fly ash, but if we look at the total cost of partition, we find that they're all in the same range. So as far as the financial viability is concerned, the fly ash brick is a fairly good candidate. And on cost parameters, on strength parameters, if we are comparable, and we are actually missing out. So there is probably a mismatch of not projecting our advantage in terms of the comparable data, and we are providing the unit-based description that probably we need to kind of bring a narrative in terms of a customer interest, wherein he is looking at the cost of partitions. Now, when we look at the comparison of cost alternatives for a typical partitioning solution in terms of per square meter, and that per square meter is what I in the previous slide in the detailed analysis of the costs that go into it, we find that the cost of material in case of fly ash is very much comparable with the bricks, and in terms of contribution of a cost of masonry with respect to the total cost, again, we are very much comparable. Therefore, what we conclude is that for the same walling solution, the comparable cost, when we translate rupees per square meter, the cost of brick turns out to be something like 30 rupees. But when we are looking at a unit level description, we are contesting, whether it should be 4 rupees or 3 rupees or the brick is 9 rupees. But what we understand is narrative of a unit based costing of fly ash versus the brick or the other alternative has no meaning, because each one of them have different properties or different sizes. Even AAC blocks have a different size. But when we relate it to the total partitioning cost, be that 4 rupees or 5 rupees for fly ash brick or 8 rupees for clay brick, eventually all of them are in the same range. So why we should focus only on the unit price, and we should not think differently in terms of an overall partitioning solution, which is very much comparable. Again, we tend to actually unnecessarily, I would like to say that unnecessarily we try to compare on a wrong set of parameters. In case of bricks, we have seen there's a tremendous focus on the strength category characteristics, wherein the fly ash bricks are giving something like M7.5 or up to M15, whereas the most competitive established walling solution, where actually these blocks go, it has internal walling solutions or external walling solutions, dry wall partition. Those solutions require only a strength of M4.5 to 6 or M2.5 to 3, and these are they're hugely acceptable in the market. So are we unnecessarily focusing on some criteria of making these solutions on the strength basis, or are we correctly are we allowing the competitors to present a different kind of a parameter, and there is no issue unnecessarily to go to M15, which probably we don't even need. So what we are trying to project here is that instead of comparing ourselves with fly ash bricks all the time, we need to move away from bricks to the walling solutions, which the customer is interested. And we find that fly ash based solutions, they will give you more or less the same performance. But in that case, we need to focus on what are the parameters of a product there. And there we find that the narrative of strength is not really the focus, which we have done so far. If we look at the impediments in adoption of a fly ash bricks, more or less everybody would agree that there's a variation in quality of fly ash. Some speakers have raised this question: breaking of corners, holding capacity, strength of bricks. Although we're designing bricks for a longer time, and probably the issues could be because of the slow strength that gains, and probably premature the transportation happens, or peeling of plasters, etc. These are some of the technical issues that exist. As far as the management issues are concerned, we have seen that the intermittent supply of fly ash, and that becomes a problem for the enterprise. And I have already mentioned about the strength criteria. The other issue is the reusability of bricks. Once you remove the partition, then what do we do? Productivity issue, available of the tools, and how the screws and other fasteners have. These are actually management issues that need to be sorted out or differently. The technical issues. Again, our theme is to think differently. Now, as far as the problem of marketing is concerned, we find that we are unnecessarily focusing on comparing with the conventional established solution brick, whereas this product is very different from bricks. So probably we need to build a narrative from product information to the solution information. We have resolved issues. We have resolved issues of the skills, the tools, PPP for the fly ash utilization. But the trouble is that when it comes to the site, we need to bring that awareness to the people, and that is where probably there is some kind of an additional effort that is necessary. We are giving bricks to fly ash bricks to a conventional clay brick mason. Probably we have giving a product to a wrong guy, or the guy is picking up a wrong product for which his skills probably are not fully commensurate. And we also find that there is a problem of breaking half bricks or queen closures for conventional English and Flemish bond. So we find that why we are still following the same process of bricklaying for the fly ash brick, or can we not recalibrate the sizes of bricks or the partition? For example, AAC blocks come with a different dimensions. So why should we always compare with the bricks alone? And that's where probably we again need to differently and start looking at the complete walling solution, where the cost and other parameters are very much in favor. And that's where the industry needs to come forward. We need to look at the paradigm shift from product to solution. The selling price must justify the value that customer is getting as a complete solution. And are we dealing with the wrong guy in the supply chain, wherein we find that the stakeholder in the supply chain is the brick manufacturer, and brick manufacturer is actually the same clay brick manufacturer. Whereas when we're looking into product, we need to look at or a solution, we need to look at a completely different set of people, such as the dealership network, such as the marketing people who take them to the solution. Whereas the conventional brick kiln person is not really well versed with the kind of. So essentially, we need to move away from this. The focus is to provide what the customer needs as a solution, and how it fulfills the customer needs. The pricing strategies we already highlighted, whereas necessarily we are focusing only on the unit price and not on the complete price. And the value addition issues need to be highlighted. Well, as I come to towards close of my presentation, and I am presenting you the way forward, what I would like to highlight at this stage is that the product improvement approach needs to be adopted, but we also start looking at the the solutions. And in the product related issues, we need to look at how the supply chains can be improved, especially how the demand and supply locations, we bring them closer by appropriate strategies in transportation, etc. R&D needs to be strengthened, which, as I presented earlier, there are many areas where we have opportunities, but the commercialization has not happened to that extent. And we look at the possibilities of improvement or innovation in some of the area. I have tried to identify and present to you the issue related to the skilling of human resources and development of tools, etc., wherein we see that probably we are using conventional methods and conventional skilling personnel to handle materials which are very different. And finally, we consider that the value benefits must reach and must be communicated appropriately to the customers in a customer-friendly manner. Some resources that need to be developed, and I'm sure that will change a perception in the minds of the people. Finally, what I have tried to highlight time and again this in the presentation is that we need to think very differently. And how do we think very differently? Is that mainstreaming of use of fly ash and the bauxite residue is in need of the hour. Abundance of opportunities await their use as we move towards sustainable construction paradigm. It is a resource that is being wasted at the cost of materials that actually need to be prevented from utilizing, because that is an environmental crisis that we are creating for ourselves. So at the cost of these materials, if we are able to harness this resource which we are getting from other industry such as aluminum or power sector, this will be greatly useful. What therefore I would like to conclude is that we need to change our narrative from waste to resource. We need to look at fly ash not as a waste, but as a coal combustion residue, so that the perspective changes, that it is a scientifically usable material which can be converted into a practical scientific specifications, etc. Similarly, we start looking at red mud in terms of bauxite residue, and creates a kind of a positive motivation for the people, and we change paradigm of application innovation from product to the solution, and that's where the consumer is more interested, and we should try to bring it closer to the customer interest. Thank you very much for listening to my thoughts on fly ash utilization, and there have been some questions which we noticed in the chat box. I have tried to cover these during my discussion itself. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity. Jai Hind.